Meeting between Russian President Putin and Zelensky is in the works before he hopefully meets them together.
And joining us now on the phone with more details, the President of the United States, the 45th and 47th President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, thanks so much for joining Fox and Friends this morning.
Good morning. That's quite a crew. That's quite a crew.
Well, Mr. President, the whole world was watching yesterday as you got leaders from the European Union, NATO, as well, from all over the world. How did you get them to Washington, to the Oval Office, so fast?
Well, I think really they have respect for our country again. A year ago, they wouldn't have come. They wouldn't have even thought about it. Now, we've become the hottest country anywhere in the world. Everybody wants to be here. When I made the call, they came. And they said there's really never been anything like it. You know, you'd have one president or one prime minister, but there's never been, such a group. And these really represent the European nations, these people. And they're very good people. And they want to end the war, that horrible war with Ukraine and Russia. It's a horrible war.
It was such a sense of unity, and we all enjoyed watching it because America is on top. And it was on your turf, on your terms. I know yesterday you talked about arranging a meeting to take place in 2 weeks between Putin and Zelensky. Is there an update there, and do you plan to attend?
No, I thought I'd do first let them meet. You know, they haven't been exactly best friends. They haven't gotten along very well. And I called President Putin yesterday, and I do have a good relationship, but it only matters if we get things done. Otherwise, I don't care about the relationship. I do have a good relationship with him, but I want to get things done. You know, I've solved 7 wars. We ended 7 wars. I thought this would be one of the easier ones, and this has turned out to be the toughest one. India, Pakistan, I mean, these were big ones, and also all big ones, and some going for 31, 32 years, one for 35 years. The Congo, think of that, the Congo and Rwanda for 35 years. I got that one done. I got them all done, but this one is the one that is the most difficult, and I thought it would be an easy one. So I hope President Putin is going to be good, and if he's not, it's going to be a rough situation. And I hope that President Zelensky will do what he has to do. He has to show some flexibility also. The thing is a mess. This was started by Joe Biden. This was a war that should have never happened. Millions of people are dead. The country's blown to pieces, Ukraine, and it's a shame. You know, my wife Melania wrote that beautiful note to President Putin about children. The children are devastated. They're taken away from their homes. The whole thing. And this is a war that would have never, ever, ever happened if we had a real president.
So, Mr. President, it's been barely a week since you announced that first meeting in Alaska, and it's just been days since that meeting, and then you had the meeting yesterday. In the course of having these negotiations, what has surprised you the most between Zelensky and Putin in terms of their strength or weakness of their position right now?
Well, I think the fact that maybe they're getting along a little bit better than I thought. Otherwise, I wouldn't have set up the 2 meeting. I would have set up the 3, a trilat. But I think they're doing a little bit better. There's been tremendous bad blood. And again, this was all worked out by an administration that didn't have a clue. And if you remember, they said, well, if you made a minor incursion, that would be okay. That was the end. The whole thing when Biden made that statement. But minor incursion, what does that mean? So I think they're doing okay. I wouldn't say they are ever going to be best friends, but they're doing okay. And we're just going to see. So we're setting up a meeting. I sort of set it up with Putin and Zelensky. And, you know, they're the ones that have to call the shots. We're 7,000 miles away, in all fairness. You know, we've spent through the previous administration $350 billion. Europe has spent a lot also, $100 billion, but it should be reversed. If we should have been in for anything, but it wouldn't have happened. So that would have been much better because so many people died. This is the biggest bad situation since World War II. There's been nothing even close.
So, Mr. President, I know you've been doing deals your entire life when it comes to real estate deals, but this was something a little different. The thing that is surprising a lot of people is when it comes to the security guarantees. I know President Putin said, no NATO. And you said, you know what, we're just going to take that off the table. But you did get President Putin to agree to NATO-like protections. So tell us about that. What does that entail?
Well, the war really started over NATO and Crimea. And they wanted Crimea back. That was given, not a shot fired by President Obama in perhaps the worst real estate deal I've ever seen. There's been a couple of them. I would say the Gaza Strip was a pretty bad one, too, given by Israel so they'd have peace. So they gave away a big percentage of their oceanfront property in order to have peace. How did that work out? Not so good. And Crimea is the apple of Ukraine. I mean, it's so beautiful. And Obama gave it away. Nobody ever mentions that. If I ever did that, the fake news would be, they would be writing about me day and night for years. He gave it away. He demanded that they let it go. And Russia came in and took it, just took it like from a candy from a baby. And it was really Obama's, not really, I mean, that was pure and simple, Obama's fault. What a terrible thing he did to that country. And so they lost their heart. They lost the heart and soul of the Ukraine 14 years ago, whatever it might be. And it was so unnecessary to do that. And that's when it really began, when Obama gave it away. And then you had a lot of other events, but you have, tremendous hostility. The people of Ukraine were mortified when that took place. That really began a lot of hatred when they gave it. And they didn't have to. Not a shot was fired. They just took over the most valuable piece and the biggest piece in a sense and surrounded on four sides by ocean, just a little passage to get you back onto the mainland. The most beautiful piece of property you've ever seen as a real estate developer. I look at it, I said, why the heck did he do that to them? And so there's great hostility, and maybe rightfully so. But one thing was NATO. They went in. They said, we want you. We want to get Crimea back. This was at the beginning. Now, Putin, in all fairness to him, he made a good deal. He got it from Obama. But they said, we want it back. And that was not exactly well received because it was like 12 years before. That's where Russia has its submarine base. And, that's been there long before Putin. They've been there for a long time, but long before Putin. And the other thing they said is we want to be a member of NATO. Well, both of those things are impossible because, again, long before Putin, it was a no-no by Russia or the Soviet Union or anything you want to call it. Sort of a similar thing as it gets larger, but very similar. But it was always a no-no. You could not. Russia said we don't want the so-called opponent or the enemy. Let's use that term. We don't want them on our border, and they were right. They were okay, and yet they went in and they asked with the United States. They said, put us into NATO, and everybody knew you just can't do that. They would never have agreed to it. This is before Putin. This is long before Putin. It was just a no-no. It was something that was never going to happen. So they asked for it, and they shouldn't have asked for it because it was, very insulting thing. Now, they could have asked for many other things. But the other thing they wanted to do is getting Crimea back, and, that was given. They had built, they were expanding everything and spending a lot of money, all because Barack Hussein Obama gave it away in one of the dumbest real estate deals I've ever seen.
But, Mr. President, you got the Article 5 protections, though, for Ukraine. So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but you still got them the same protections.
So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but we've got the European nations, and they'll front-load it, and they'll have some of them, France and Germany, a couple of them, UK, they want to have, boots on the ground. Not in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, to be honest with you. I think Putin is tired of it. I think they're all tired of it. But you never know. We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks. That I can tell you, and we're going to see where it all goes. It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal. I always said, you interviewed me, Lawrence, and I think Charlie also. Lawrence, I hate to tell you, Charlie was about the first person in the world to endorse me. He endorsed me about a year before I ran. And that's why he called me this morning, sir, would you do an interview? And unlike Biden, I don't need permission from my staff, okay? And then only to be told that I'm not doing it. But Charlie endorsed me about a year before, I think, and he puts it up on his site. It's still not checked. It's still on his site. I endorsed President Trump before he even ran. So I always like a guy like that, I must tell you, you know? Now,
Well, it's
Lawrence
a-
is going to be a superstar, but he was a little later to the game, in all fairness. Hey, Lawrence.
Well, it's a lot more crowded these days than it was back then.
It's pretty
but, Mr.
crowded.
President, what kind of assurances do you feel like you have that going forward and, past this Trump administration, it won't be American boots on the ground defending that border?
Well, you have my assurance, I'm president, and I'm just trying to stop people from being killed, Charlie. Look, they're losing from 5,000 to 7,000 people a week in that ridiculous war that should have never happened. If we had a normal president, not even a great president, if we had a normal president, it wouldn't have happened. But we had a guy that didn't have a clue. And they're losing, think of it, 5,000 to 7,000 a week. So even these guys, they'll say, okay, let's meet next week. I say, you can't meet next week. Next week, you're going to have 7,000 more dead people. You can't do that. You got to get this thing done. One of the things at the table was one of the gentlemen, who's a great guy, but he said, I hope I didn't insult him. He said, well, let's meet in another month or two, and let's see if we can start, making some. He said, a month or two, you're going to have another 40,000 people dead in a month or two. You have to do it tonight. And I did, actually. I called President Putin, and we're trying to work out a meeting with President Zelensky. We'll see what happens there. And then if it works out, then I'll go to the trilat and close it up.
Oh, that'd be good. Mr. President, did y'all discuss any land swaps yesterday? Because we've talked a lot about the Donbass region. And what was the feeling in the room? What did the other leaders say about this?
Well, they understand. Look, everybody can play cute and this and that, but, Ukraine's going to get their life back. They're going to stop having people killed all over the place, and they're going to get a lot of land. But this was a war, and Russia is a powerful military nation, whether people like it or not. It's a powerful nation. It's a much bigger nation. It's not a war that should have been started. You don't do that. You don't take on a nation that's 10 times your size. And, military experts look, if it wasn't for the greatest military equipment, we make the greatest military equipment in the world, and we gave them, whatever. They took probably a lot of money, too. But they had tremendous, they had the Patriot missile, which is the best in the world. All the equipment, we make the best equipment in the world by far. Everyone else is like nothing. So we gave them a lot of equipment. Now, with that said, the Ukrainian soldiers were brave as hell because they're fighting a force that's much, much bigger and, in theory, much more powerful. And, it's not like they've stopped. I assume you've all seen the map. A big chunk of territory is taken, and that territory has been taken. Now, they're talking about Donbass, but Donbass right now, as you know, is 79% owned and controlled by Russia. So they understand what that means.
But, Mr. President, what did the other leaders tell you? Because it seemed to be, this is unlike the first Trump term. There was great unity that was there, and we saw their public comments. But when you got them in the Oval Office, and we have this photo of you sitting at the Resolute desk, and all of these world leaders are sitting in front of you. What did they say to you privately? Because it looked like they're on the same page as you, sir.
Yeah, they are. They're very good people. They're very good leaders of their countries, and they want to get back to leading their country. They're consumed far more with this than we are because they're right there. We have an ocean that's separating us, right? Thing called an ocean. A big, beautiful ocean, and they don't. They're right there, so they have to. It's a different kind of a thing for them. When it comes to security, they're willing to put people on the ground. We're willing to help them with things, especially probably if you talk about by air, because nobody has the kind of stuff we have. Really, they don't have. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think if a deal is made, famous last words, right? But I think if a deal is made, I think Russia's had it. They've all had it. And for a very extended period of time, I don't think there'll be a problem. But there'll be some form of security. It can't be NATO because that's just not something that would ever happen. They couldn't do that. So who would want that? I mean, if you were Russia, who would want to have your enemy, your opponent, sitting on your line? You don't do that. So it was always thought that Ukraine was sort of a buffer between Russia and the rest of Europe. And it was a big, wide buffer. Everything worked out well until Biden got involved. You know, when Biden gave them $100 billion right up front, I don't give them anything. You know, I don't know if you know it, but since I've been there, we don't pay. First of all, I made a deal to take rare earth. That's the equivalent of much more than the $350 billion that Biden got away, because I felt so foolish. It was so stupid what he did. And I was able to make a deal with Ukraine, and they were very nice. They have great rare earth, among the best in the world. And we took much more than the $350 billion, and they were great about it. So we got that, handled. But now we don't pay any money to Ukraine. They buy through NATO, because I got NATO to go from 2% to 5%, 2% when they didn't pay, 2% of GDP, 2% when they didn't pay, and 5% now they do pay. So it's trillions of dollars. So what we do is we make the equipment, the military equipment, and sell it at a full price. We sell it to the NATO. We sell it to NATO, and NATO pays us immediately. And that's the way it's working. And then NATO takes it and does what they want with it, because they really have the right to do what they want with it. But for the most part, they give it to Ukraine.
So President Trump,
so we're not losing. We're not like we were with Biden, where we're paying hundreds of billions of dollars that we're paying nothing.
President Trump, during the meeting yesterday, when you decided to call Vladimir Putin, what was the reaction among the other people in the room, and what was President Putin's reaction to being brought into a phone call in the middle of your meeting?
Well, I think they expected it. I didn't do it in front of them. I thought that would be disrespectful to President Putin. I wouldn't do that, because they have not had the warmest relations. And actually, President Putin wouldn't talk to the people from Europe. I mean, that was part of the problem. They
you stepped out of the Oval Office to make the call?
They had no communication with the White House for years as people died. Years with Biden and his people. No communication. Putin told me years. It was years that he didn't speak to anybody from the White House. And it was a long time that he didn't speak to anybody from Europe. No, it's a fractured relationship. And when I came in, I always had, despite the Russia hoax, which truly was a very dangerous thing for our country, but despite that, I maintained a very good relationship. I mean, you saw that when he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth there that you can't, there's a decent feeling. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing. People would say, oh, that's such a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing. You know what? We've got the most nuclear weapons in the world, and the most powerful. He's got second.
So can you describe for us how that happened? Did you just announce that you were going to go into the other room to make the phone call, and then you got up and left, and then came back?
I think they sort of knew I was, at the end of the meeting, I was going to call President Putin, and President Putin expected it, and he was there. Now, by the time I called him, it was 1 o'clock in the morning in Russia. Russia's a big place. They have 11 time zones, I believe, 9 or 11, but I think it's 11.
But
think
Mr.
of it,
President,
11 time zones. That's a lot of time zones. So it was late. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, but he picked it up very happily. He's sure he works very hard, like we all do. And we had a very good call. And I told him that we're going to set up a meeting with President Zelensky, and you and he will meet. And then after that meeting, if everything works out, okay, I'll meet and we'll wrap it up. But, it takes, in this case, two to tango. They have to have somewhat of a relationship. Otherwise, we're just wasting a lot of time. I don't want to be doing that I just want to end it. I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers, some people as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. Well, I think I saved a lot of lives with India, Pakistan. They were going at it. The planes were being shot down. That was going to be maybe a nuclear war if I let that go. And I did that through trade. I was negotiating with both of them. I said, I'm not going to make a trade deal with you guys. You're fighting until you get peace. And I got them on the phone. I made a peace deal, and many deals. 6, actually 7, and then we took out the nuclear capability from Iran. That was a big one. And those pilots and those planes, when people say, we had the B-2 fly right over President Putin as he left his plane. He looked up. He said, "What the hell is that? That's a hell of a noise." We didn't make it environmentally friendly, okay? If that's
So
okay with you guys.
did the First Lady let you read the letter that Mrs. Zelensky wrote to her?
I purposely didn't. I did not do it purposely. It was given to me sealed, and I'm sure it would have been fine. But she gave a letter to Melania, and Melania told me it was absolutely a beautiful letter. So I'm going to see it. She's sending me a copy. But I gave it to her yesterday, sealed. It's nice when you give something sealed. I don't like when things are open. I don't like it. So anyway,
Mr.
but
President?
it was a beautiful letter, I'm sure.
Mr. President, there was a lot of talk yesterday when we were watching this about what happens after your presidency. How can we ensure that this conflict, that Putin doesn't inch in closer or more into the Ukraine territory? Is there anything that we can do? Can our congressmen and women pass any laws that would involve Article 5? How would that be handled?
All you can do is make sure you get a good president, not one of these wackos like in California that runs the worst state anybody's seen, or that guy in Illinois who his family threw him out of the business because he was no good. Now he's running Illinois and he wants to run for president. He's got zero chance. Maybe Newsom has a little bit of a chance. I don't know, but it's hard to believe because his record's bad. But all you can do is hope you don't get that as president. We have a great bench, as you know that. We have great talent. And J.D. and Marco and Scott Besson's been great, and Howard. They're all, I mean, we have such superstars. Remember this, take a look at the border. The border was a disaster. Millions of people were pouring through, open border. Within 2 months, it was perfect. And within now, every week, every month, they say zero people are coming in illegally. We were taking people from prisons all over the world, gang members, insane asylum, mental patients from the worst insane asylums in the world that dropped in to our place. So now we have a very secure border, beautiful border. I built hundreds of miles of wall. Without that, we couldn't have a secure border.
Mr. President, it's clear that you have operational control of the border. I mean, when the numbers hit zero, that is clear for the whole world to see. I'm curious.
3 months in a row.
Right, without new laws even having to be passed. But, Mr. President...
now I'm doing something that I'm having such fun with because I'm helping people. I've made Washington, D.C. Just an incredible place in literally 4 days. I have friends that say they're going out to dinner. Did you see what's happening with the restaurants? They're bursting.
Yes,
they were all closing and going bankrupt. I mean, it would be... it would be great. There's a guy named Sean Hannity. He might take a very lovely young lady that he knows very well to dinner in Washington, and they don't have to. And she's sitting right next to you, by the way.
That's right.
But
Mr. President,
I don't want to get him in trouble, so I better explain exactly. We don't want any secrets here. But
that's exactly
he's got. That's the greatest relationship. I hope I'm not breaking any news. This could be the biggest. Hey, this could be the most important thing I said. But let me tell you, those are two great, Ainsley and Sean, great people. And when they go out to dinner, I don't want to see them get mugged. Now they can go out, they can hold hands, they can walk down the street. They're both superstars. I want to know who makes more money, because she's got to be making a lot.
Mr. President, we're so happy for them. But on a serious note, Mr. President, when you had those world leaders, because this is the topic of conversation for the whole world, when you had them sitting in front of you, did they express concerns about the next president, that they're not going to get the same type of treatment, security guarantees? Part of the deterrent of future attacks is your peace through strength. So that they say to you, Mr. President, we're concerned about the next leader?
They did. We talked about it. You know, it is what it is. I could say the same thing about them. I say, supposing you get a terrible leader in UK or France, or, you know, we had Ursula there who runs the whole gamut. You know, we just made the biggest trade deal in the world. She's in charge of the Commission, the European Commission, and she's the boss. She was there too. I mean, that was really an incredible array of people. But you know, they say that actually maybe even more with regard to the economy. We have $17 trillion being invested in the United States and committed, and numbers that nobody's ever seen for AI plants and for this and for that. And we're taking in trillions and trillions of dollars. That's why we're doing so well. Plants are being built all over the country. Our country has gone from a dead country 1 year ago. We're the hottest country in the world. And every one of those people said it yesterday. They said, in 6 months, you made this the hottest country in the world that we are. We have $17 trillion coming in. And they said, well, what happens if you're no longer president and somebody comes in and cancels the tariffs that we've invested hundreds of billions of dollars on building these plants, and now you have some anti-business person come in? I said, well, life is full of nasty little surprises, but I don't think it's going to happen. We have a great bench, and the bench is really talented. You see a lot of the people, and I think you're going to get great people in government.
Well, President Trump, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. We know that you have lots of other wars around the world that you need to end, and that's more important than anything. So we appreciate you joining us this morning.
No, thank you very
Thank
much,
you, Mr.
Charlie,
President.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ainsley, thank you. I hope I didn't get you in trouble with John. But no,
We
it's just
appreciate
a great
your
couple.
support.
I'll
Thank
say
you.
it. I like this. It's a great couple. We love them. Have a good
Thank you,
time,
Mr.
everybody.
President.
Congratulations for
Thank you,
yesterday.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you all very much.
The
A lot of
45th
fun.
and 47th President of the United States.